G20 comes to a close and hear from the President, Angela Merkel.
Und möchte Ihnen von unserem Gipfel berichten. Ich habe Ihnen vor dem Gipfel gesagt, dass die Voraussetzungen für ein solches Treffen durchaus sehr kompliziert
preconditions for the success of such a meeting are a little bit complicated, that success is not at all assured, and my task as Chancellor and as hostess of this summit I described, I think, to you to show German interests but also European interests, but as a hostess to also see to it that we find compromises. But obviously, that we also make it clear that wherever there are differences in opinion, we shouldn't gloss over those differences. And this is the spirit by which we were guided in our work. And I think the statement, the leaders' declaration reflects that. Yesterday we issued a first action plan, a statement on terrorism, and the meetings we had yesterday were dealing with the agenda of issues. We adopted something here today, which in many ways is the basis for what we've been doing here. We, as Germany, have adopted the motto, shaping an interconnected world. And in the preamble of the communiqué, we point out the fact that the G20 revealed its strength at the beginning, and that we were able to stabilize the world in one of the greatest crises of the world. And we also say what was true then continues to hold. We can achieve more together than by acting alone. And this indeed was the spirit which guided us in working through our agenda. We were able to achieve results. The first big complex of issues that we worked on was trying to assure that each and everyone participates in and benefits from the opportunities of globalization, the global economy, growth, trade and investment, sustainable and global value chains, tapping the potential of digitalization, and also boosting employment was of the essence. And it was clear that there would be discussions on trade, and I'm satisfied that we were able to say, well, markets need to be kept open. This is all about fighting protectionism and also unfair trade practices. We said we are ready to all of the member states. We are ready to support the OECD, the World Trade Organizations, and UNCTAD, and to allow them to supervise what we're actually doing, and that we also see that the benefits of international trade, of global trade, have not reached each and every one. So what we call inclusive growth needs to obviously also trickle down to what's happening in the member states. Now, we said a rules-based trade system plays an absolutely crucial role in making this possible, reflected by the activity of the WTO. And complementary to that, obviously, bilateral trade agreements can be concluded, but they have to be in line with WTO rules. And we therefore wish every success to the upcoming ministerial conference of WTO. There was one specific issue, namely the excess capacity in the steel sector that loomed large on the agenda. During the Chinese presidency, we agreed on setting up a global forum that will be supervised by and supported by the OECD. It worked rather slowly, so it was very important that during this meeting we were able to say until August 2017 we need to have the necessary information on the table so that in November a substantial report on stocktaking can be tabled, which will also then offer effective solutions to this issue of excess steel capacity. And I hope that this format of the Global Forum will then be used also in order to address those contentious issues that are on the table and find common solutions to them. In a second session, we then addressed the issue of securing stability and resilience. That means we need a resilient financial system. Finance ministers did exemplary work in preparing this, and also throughout this conference. The Hamburg Action Plan reflects that. It's very important that, particularly as regards the shadow banking sector, we work systematically in bringing that forward. The global financial architecture has been improved after the global financial crisis. The head of the Financial Stability Board, Mark Carney, pointed out that we absolutely need to be vigilant as regards establishing a level playing field for the international financial market structure. That's something that we need. We then also mentioned the base erosion and profit shifting issue. That too, this initiative needs to be implemented. It's of central importance for establishing fairness in taxation. We also pointed out to how important it was to combat pandemics. They may well cast a pall over the whole stability of the global economy. We talked in a special session together with the head of the WHO. We had for the first time in the period leading up to the summit meeting a meeting of health ministers, and it was also the first time that the head of the WHO addressed us here. Together with the World Bank and the WHO, we think better equipped to show a common front and a determined front should further pandemics occur. Another very important area in health is obviously fighting against antimicrobial resistances. That too is a very important issue. Now, the third session and also the third part of the communiqué deals with sustaining livelihoods, improving sustainable livelihoods. We talked about participation of women, empowerment of women. That is something where we build on the meeting of Brisbane, because in Brisbane we said we want to close this employment gap, this participation gap between men and women, reducing it by 25% by 2025. Two further initiatives were added to that. On the one hand, the so-called e-skills initiative that we consider to be of prime importance, because this really is all about the central factor of education and skills. And with regard to digitalization, our African colleagues highlighted the importance of education as key to promoting sustainable growth in Africa. We also at some length discussed a German initiative that was supported by colleagues, namely Africa shouldering namely the G20 shouldering responsibility for Africa through the Compact with Africa. The central element of that is a compact with Africa and with individual African countries. There too we have adopted a paper on this, so that we do not only engage furthermore in traditional development cooperation, but that we also set up partnerships. This is a very important initiative because the African Union that was represented here around the table of G20 countries under the chairmanship of the President of Guinea, with its Agenda 2063, outlined for the first time what they envisaged for the future of Africa and for future development. And we then also looked at fighting corruption, at migration and flight. Discussed this at some length, and particularly on corruption, a number of very important papers have been adopted. One crucial issue was climate and energy. And what came out of this meeting was what I had already said at the beginning of this meeting. Wherever there is no consensus that can be achieved, disagreement has to be made clear. You are familiar with the American position. You know that, unfortunately, and I deplore this, the United States of America left the climate agreement, or rather announced their intention of doing this. So what becomes clear in this declaration is the dissenting view of the United States, but I am very gratified to note that the other 19 member states of G20 say that the Paris Agreement is irreversible, that we feel committed to to what we agreed on, and that it is to be implemented as quickly as possible, and that we also agreed on a so-called Hamburg Action Plan on climate and energy. So, ladies and gentlemen, this brings me to the point that obviously this leaders' declaration is one document, but that in all of those papers that we've also adopted, that I pointed out to you already, we have committed ourselves to a number of obligations. Argentina will be the host country next year. In 2019, Japan will take over the presidency, and then in 2020, Saudi Arabia. On the margins of such a summit meeting, there are obviously always opportunities for meeting with leaders in bilateral meetings. I think that this is a very useful tool, not only that there were lengthy discussions between the American and the Russian president, but the French President Emmanuel Macron and I were able this morning to talk to Vladimir Putin about the future of the Normandy format. And we also were able to work on a number of other issues and achieve results. The results that I outlined to you and all of the success we achieved throughout these 2 days was only possible because a lot of policemen and women, security forces, ensured our safety, our security during this summit. They had a very difficult task. They also saw to it, that was their mission, to see to it that those who wanted to peacefully demonstrate could do so. They have tried their utmost to do that. On behalf of all of the members of the G20, I would like to thank them. My colleagues very expressly said to me that I should pass this on, their gratitude, that is, to the security forces, and I can include each and everyone who has seen to it that this summit could take place. The violence unleashed, this absolutely scrupulous brutality with which the police forces were attacked, I condemn wholeheartedly. There is no justification whatsoever for pillage, for larceny, for brutal attacks against the life and limb of policemen, and I can only say those who act in this vein are not at all interested in uttering political criticism or standing up for people on this planet. Who acts like this can no longer be called a Democrat. I talked to the chief of police forces who was responsible for ensuring our security. I wanted to do that. I will later on talk to the first mayor of Hamburg, Olaf Scholz, and will ask him also to pass on our thanks to his police force because, as you know, this mission is still ongoing, this operation is still ongoing, and they have done a tremendous job, and I'm truly grateful. I talked to the finance minister. We will see to it how we can, together with the Free Hanseatic city of Hamburg, try and elite how, not if, but how we can offer them compensation for the personal damage that they incurred, and we will start talks with the city of Hamburg on this. So that by way of an introductory statement, and now I'm open to take questions.